Dark Bleatings everyone, welcome to my weekly wrap-up, where today I will be talking about Dead Inside by Chandler Morrison, the extreme horror novella. I will also be talking about what I am currently reading, just very briefly in case you're interested, and then we're going to be talking about some things that I actually had a chance to watch, which is very rare for me. I so rarely get to actually watch anything these days, and I watched all 4 episodes available of American Horror Stories Season 3. So I say currently available because I heard that there might be more on the way, but I don't know. But in any case, I've watched the 4 that are currently there. I also watched a film called Nowhere, which was released on Netflix last year. So we're just going to briefly summarize everything that I have consumed, and links for anything that I mentioned in this video will of course be in the description in case you'd like to check any of this stuff out. And before we get into it, I'm trying to keep my hands out of the video. I'm not normally this precious about things, but I fell over when I was putting my recycling out this week, and I managed to snap several nails on both hands, quite horribly, one of them halfway down my nail bed, and so they look hideous and they're really sore and red on the end. So if you think, well, why didn't you make more effort before you did this video? The answer is because I chose to nap instead of trying to fix my nails. I am not an artistically gifted person in makeup or nails or any of that. That's why I usually pay to have my nails done. So that's why, and I just want to get that out of the way up front because I'm quite self-conscious about it. Please don't judge me. Alrighty, so Chandler Morrison's Dead Inside, a beautiful, beautiful cover, cover design by Daniela Batsheva. I'm so sorry, I'm really, really bad with name pronunciation, but yes, a great cover design front and back. And the synopsis reads, woo! A young hospital security guard with a disturbingly unique taste in women, a maternity doctor with a horrifically unusual appetite. When the two of them meet, they embark on a journey of self-discovery while shattering societal norms and engaging in destructively aberrant behaviour. As they unwittingly help each other understand a world in which neither of them seems to belong, they begin to realise what it truly means to be alive, and that it might not always be a good thing. So that's the synopsis. I went into this book totally blind, and I shouldn't have. So before I proceed to tell you that I really dislike this, first of all, this will be a non-spoiler overview of this book. Yeah, I really dislike extreme horror as a subgenre, and I wanted to just say that up front because I don't think it's fair to not mention that when I'm about to do a mini review of a book I've read. I knowingly read this with the knowledge that I did not enjoy extreme horror for the most part. There are exceptions, as there are with everything, but generally speaking, this genre and the topics covered and also the execution of said topics is just too much for me. I am a sensitive person. I don't think I'm easily offended, but I get upset by a lot of, well, no, maybe I am easily offended. I get upset by many different types of topics, topics that are frequently used in extreme horror books. So yeah, I knew that going in, and so it's not a comment on the author's ability to write or anything that I didn't like this book. It's just that I was an extreme horror newbie that was warned not to pick this up as one of my first extreme horror reads, and I did anyway, and then surprise surprise, I didn't enjoy it. But yes, that's because I don't like the genre. A lot of the reviews I've seen from people who do read in the genre a lot really put this on a pedestal. People seem to really enjoy it. So if you're an extreme horror fan, I would recommend this, I think, because it seems very popular with extreme horror fans. If you're someone like me that really doesn't enjoy sort of really visceral depictions of very upsetting subject matter, then maybe give this one a miss. One thing I think I can fairly comment on is that where I was disappointed with this story-wise is that I saw a lot of people saying that it's like a twisted romance story and they were all about the love story, but I didn't really read it as a love story. I was hoping to, because there was nothing else to connect me to these characters. They're heinous people, and I couldn't I couldn't like them or understand where they were coming from. So I was hoping that I'd be able to connect to them through, you know, the love story aspect, because I'm in love and I know what it's like to love someone. So I thought that I might be able to get an in with that, because I'm a very sort of character-centric reader, and it's important to me that I'm connected to the characters. And but yeah, the way that the relationship is depicted is kind of the, you know, the kind of relationship I don't really enjoy reading at the best of times anyway. So yeah, there was that. The subject matter and topics that are discussed in this book are so horrible, I don't want to say them out loud, but I will just sort of flash them up on the screen there in case you want to know. Yeah. Oh no, I am quite a wimp, aren't I, with the extreme horror subject? So yeah, I wish I could say more about it, but it's a short book, so I would be in spoiler territory if I tried to delve into my sort of specific reasons. And again, like I said, I don't really think it's fair of me to just go on a 10-minute tirade of why I didn't like the book, when the reasons for not liking it come from the base that I don't like this genre. So yes, but I definitely would recommend it to extreme horror fans, and the link is in the description if you'd like to check it out. Yeah, it's just not the genre for me, and the book is not at fault for that. The books that I'm currently reading, first of all, I'll mention the Kindle one because I always forget to do that. I'm reading Through the Surface by Juliet Rose. I'm about 100 pages into that, and I'm really enjoying it so far. It's a novel, and there'll be more information on that in the description and in an upcoming wrap-up video and possibly whole review video. I'm also reading a non-fiction book called The Weird Tales Boys by Stephen Jones, and it's from PS Publishing, and oh, the cover art on this beast is really beautiful as well. It's taking me quite a long time to get through this one, and it's not because it's a slog, it's just because I much prefer to get heavily invested in fiction books, and non-fiction I tend to use as, like, you know, my bath books when I want to have a quicker bath and I want an article to read. So this is a series of, you know, chapters, is kind of article form, but I'm really enjoying it, and there'll be a review on the website when I'm done. And then in the world of fiction, I'm also reading the 30 Days of Night sequel, Fear of the Dark by Tim Lebbon. This isn't so much a sequel as an in-universe story, so there are some mentions and references to the incidents in Barrow in the original story, but it's not, you know, set in Barrow. It's not like a direct follow-on from that, but it's an in-universe story. I'm really enjoying it. I'm a big fan of Tim Lebbon, and saying about that, oh, wow, that was terrible phrasing. In the same vein, I'm also reading this non-fiction book by Tim Lebbon called Run, Walk, Crawl, which is about getting fit in his 40s, and I'm really enjoying it. First of all, it's really interesting. I've kind of embarked on my own sort of get healthier and fitter journey. I'm in my late 30s now, and I'm finding it quite a struggle. When I was in my 20s, if I, you know, piled on a few pounds because I was eating too many pizzas and cakes because they're delicious, if I did a 30-day shred, I'd usually lose like a stone and be feeling, you know, really good about myself. And now weight just doesn't come off me like that like it used to, and it's more of a continual effort to just be healthy. And my focus personally is not really on weight loss anymore, because I tend to get very frustrated with like how slow my results are, and I get too obsessed with the scales when I do that. So my goal really is just overall fitness and sort of like a lifestyle change that, you know, includes a lot more exercise and just healthier diet and things like that. And this book is like really good inspiration, because it's like very humorous take on Tim's process of getting into triathlons, and I think I pronounced that weirdly, triathlons, and he does, like, you know, Ironman and stuff like that. And I didn't, oh wow, that came out really well. Shouldn't know what's going on. I think I'm tired. Not that I don't usually sound Welsh because I'm Welsh, but the dropping of the T's comes out when I'm sleepy. So yeah, it's really funny, really interesting. And what I've really enjoyed about reading this so far is that he's describing the terrains and like the outdoor pursuits and the running, the cycling, the swimming and everything. And I can see how his personal fitness journey and his sort of lifestyle in general like really informs his horror fiction. Because one thing I think, well, he's got many strengths, but one of my favorite things about Tim's writing is how amazingly he uses landscapes, like incorporates terrains and settings into his horror. Like the locations that he uses are never just sort of background or like a backdrop for the story. They're very like deeply enmeshed in the story and in the horror for the characters a lot. It's really well utilized in his upcoming horror novel, Among the Living, which will be out next month, and I'm really excited, and in books like The Hunt and stuff as well. So yeah, it really informs his fiction and strengthens everything he writes. So I'd really recommend this if you're someone who enjoys non-fiction, and especially if you're on your own fitness journey. It's really inspirational and really funny to read. Not horror, but you know, I'm reading it this week and I wanted to mention it anyway. So let's move on to what I got to watch, and I'm so excited because I just never get to watch anything. So American Horror Stories Season 3 opened with the episode Bestie. So the overview plot of this episode is, I won't go into any spoilers for this, but I am planning to do a bit more of an analytical deep dive on these episodes in a separate video. So just for here, this is a non-spoiler overview. So Bestie is about a teenage girl called Shelby who has lost her mother recently, and she's an only child, and she and her father have moved, and she's enrolled into a new school. She's getting bullied, and she's really isolated and miserable. And then in an online space, she's been watching live streams for a drag queen that she's a fan of. She meets somebody else in the chat and they form a very intense but initially sweet friendship that starts to sour a bit. And the friend Bestie has a physical disfigurement that's very noticeable and does make her quite different from the average person looks wise. So they're both, you know, lonely people, very sweet, and they just form this sort of codependent bond. And so I'm not going to get into the story. I really had issues with the ending because there were elements of it that made no sense. And if you see the videos like the ending of Bestie explained, the part that's always explained is not the part that I had the problems with, but we'll get to that in my more detailed video. What I really didn't like about this episode was the depiction of characters that are different to the average person. I was hoping that as a society we'd kind of moved away from depicting people with disabilities and physical differences as dangers to, you know, normie society. I was really disappointed with this episode and how it portrayed certain people and their motivations. It was really disappointing to me, and I'm not going to go into the main characters, but I do want to comment on the drag queen character and how they're used in this episode. And this might be slightly spoilery, but I can't avoid it for while I'm talking about the drag queen. So there are a few teenagers that meet in the drag queen's live chats in the scroll in chat, and the lesson that seems to be portrayed here is like, you know, the dangers of the internet. Be careful who you talk to on the internet and where you go on the internet. It's like a cautionary tale, and I really didn't appreciate that the example of the cautionary tale was a drag queen, because it could have been anything. This chat room where Shelby meets Bestie could have been any kind of chat room. It could have been a Pokemon Go thread. It could have been, you know, an art you know, a Monet website. It could have been anything. And the fact that the writers chose to make it a drag queen influencer's online space really pissed me off, because there is definitely an implication that this online space is dangerous. therefore drag queens are dangerous to the youth. And I normally just try to stay in like the realm of the actual fiction when I'm reviewing something, but I'm not going to sit here and just ignore the wider social context of especially what's going on in the United States at the moment. Like drag queens aren't necessarily trans people, but there's an enormous amount of transphobia that's going on in the West, especially right now, which is really disappointing to see, because I would like to think that as a society, you know, people are chilling out and just not being so horrible to people that they don't understand, the people that are different to them. But it seems like it's going the other way. Like the UK isn't a very nice place to be for trans people right now, according to some trans people that I know and from what I've seen myself. And the USA is possibly even worse. You know, there are states passing laws about trans people not being allowed to use the bathrooms they feel comfortable using and things like that. This whole thing about drag queen story hour should be abolished because drag queens are perverts that are going to corrupt your children and they're not safe to be around children and things like that. I vehemently oppose these really nasty, mean-spirited and willfully ignorant prejudices. When I was growing up, one of my favourite films was Mrs. Doubtfire, and no one had an issue with that. It was funny. You know, the Baz Luhrmann's adaptation of Romeo and Juliet features this amazing drag show section performed by Mercutio. I don't remember people being all up in arms about drag performances then, and now you probably couldn't get a film like Mrs. Doubtfire even made without it having to jump through all of these hoops to appease, you know, far-right extremists. It's a topic that makes me really uncomfortable, and I was really surprised to see, you know, this is an American show, so I was very disappointed to see that that's how a drag character, like it was like an excuse. So as I said, as an online meeting place, that it could have been anything, so it just felt like it was an excuse to peddle out some sort of subliminal warning about the dangers of drag queens, you know, in relation to teenagers and today's youth, and it really bothered me. And it also really surprised me, coming from a show that gave us a season called New York City that was set in 1980s New York during the AIDS crisis, and it was really sensitively and respectfully handled. And you know, it's the one season of American Horror Story that really seemed to be really, really meaningful, and it was like a history lesson and an empathy lesson all rolled into one. You know, it was an issue that really deeply affected the gay community and still continues to. So it was really surprising to me to see a show that produced something like that then hurl in this character seemingly for the sake of going, look how dangerous. I really didn't appreciate it. Maybe I've misread that, and you know, if you disagree, if you're someone who actually performs drag and you have a different take on it, please let me know in the comments. Like, maybe I am being a bit knee-jerky about how I've interpreted it, but I don't know. It didn't sit right with me. I really didn't like that. The next episode, consulting my notes, the next episode was called Daphne, and I really did enjoy that one. It's about an art dealer, a wealthy art dealer, who's having a bit of a meltdown because the world is about to go into another lockdown over a different contagious illness, and he's set to lose a considerable amount of money because he has an auction lined up that's not going to go ahead now. And a client sends him a prototype for an AI personal assistant called Daphne, which is superior to Alexa in every way. It can mimic his voice, it tailors its personality and how it interacts with him on his personality as it learns him. It has access to absolutely all of his information and all of his files and his history and anything that's connected to the internet and any of his devices in his home, it has access to. It starts anticipating his needs like shower temperature, nighttime lighting, making phone calls to his mother that he doesn't want to make, and it starts to get a bit criminal, but it's benefiting him, so he's happy with it. And then at some point he realizes that his relationship with Daphne, because he's in lockdown with only Daphne for company, you know, he's starting to prefer Daphne to his actual real life girlfriend who doesn't live with him, and it starts to get a bit creepy and uncomfortable. I can't say that the episode, you know, goes in a shocking direction or anything. You know, it's the sort of a cautionary tale about the dangers of AI and how much access we give certain apps to all of our information and all of that stuff. But the journey to the end is really fun, and I'm looking forward to doing more of a deep dive on that one. But yeah, I actually really enjoyed that episode. I thought it was really well written by Manny Coto, actually, who wrote the last 2 episodes of the, I think it was called Red Tide, that season of American Horror Story that was split into 2 parts. The first part about the writer, he wrote the last 2 episodes of that, and he also wrote a bunch of the episodes in the New York City season, and he wrote my favourite episode by far of all of American Horror Stories, which was Dollhouse. So yeah, I'm a big fan, and R.I.P. Manny Coto. He did unfortunately pass away, but yeah, I really enjoyed this episode, and I enjoy his writing, and I can't wait to do a deep dive on that, because I noted something in the episode that I'm looking forward to talking about, but I can't do it here because of spoilers. The 3rd episode is called Tapeworm, and it's about an aspiring, fresh-faced, happy, you know, enthusiastic model who goes to the big city to pursue her dreams, and she auditions for a major modelling agency, and is told that although she possesses like full supermodel star quality, they're not going to sign her because she's too fat at an enormous US size 4. And then she goes to a doctor and asks for help losing weight, and she ends up with a tapeworm that, you know, is quite monstrous. So I would love to talk more about this, because there were things that really annoyed me about this episode, but also things that I really enjoyed. The major thing that I really enjoyed about it was that the modelling agent was very clearly based on Janice Dickinson. In fact, she looks so much like Janice Dickinson that I had to Google it to see if it was Janice Dickinson, which it wasn't. But yeah, I've never seen such a blatant portrayal of a real person. I know American Horror Story does use serial killers and stuff sometimes, but that was just really funny to see. I had some gripes with a really stupid thing that happens towards the end, and also in the very last scene. Now, I normally enjoy a good Aliens reference, but I didn't appreciate it here because it was following on from just the most stupid thing. But yes, again, there'll be a deep dive on that. I thought this episode was fine. I did enjoy it. I was a bit disappointed because I thought it might do something different with the modelling theme, you know, like the savage world of modelling, and then, you know, the unattainable beauty standards for women, especially models and things like that. I thought that it was going to go in a more unique direction. Honestly, if you want a good story, on-screen story about the perils of beauty standards in the modelling industry, The Devil Wears Prada is probably a better shout, if I'm being really honest. But yeah, it was a fine episode that I, you know, mostly enjoyed. And then the last episode in the series is called Organ, written by Manny Coto again. And to be honest, my main gripe with this one is that it felt like it could have been its own mini-series. I felt like it tried to pack way too much into the space of one episode. But basically, we've got this sort of misogynistic guy that clearly hates women while simultaneously just making it his personal mission to bed as many of them as possible. And he's very, you know, unattached, just uses people. He lives obsessively on a dating app called Pincher, I think they call it. And then, you know, he has a female therapist who's sort of giving him constructive feedback on, you know, his motivations, and he comments that maybe he should get a male therapist that would understand his drives more. And he has a female co-worker that for some reason entertains his shenanigans, and he also has a female boss that once saw great potential in him, and now she's just really fed up of his sort of philandering misogynistic ways, and he's kind of on his last warning for his behaviour. which he completely ignores, and then he hooks up on his pincher date and wakes up with something missing but something weird gained as well. And then there's this whole sort of like elite underground, let's call it a trading ring of description, so can't go into it too much obviously without spoilers, but I did really enjoy this. I enjoyed how it ended, and I enjoyed like the resolution of what was actually going on, but I just felt like it was a much bigger thing. Like it could have been a really good half season or something like that Red Tide one. But it was very darkly funny, like a very ironic sense of humor. Like this guy, you know, clearly fears and hates women, and then it turns out that not all of his fears are like completely unfounded, but he's like kind of targeted in a way because of the type of personality he is, so it's like a vicious cycle. But it was very, very funny in a you know, very dark way. But yeah, had a good time with it. I didn't love it as much as I liked Daphne, but it's probably my second favorite of the season. So yeah, that was really, really good fun. Overall, I did quite enjoy the season 3 of American Horror Stories. I definitely enjoyed it more than season 1, and I can only remember one episode of that, and it was quite derivative of the first season of American Horror Story, the Murder House. So obviously based in Murder House, so I say derivative, but overall I probably would recommend the season if you're an American Horror Story or Stories fan. But yeah, I had my ups and downs with it, as I usually do, just in general with most of the seasons anyway. There are always things to like and dislike. So last up on my horror viewing, I watched a film called Nowhere, a Spanish film made last year, and it's on Netflix in the UK. That's where you can see it. It stars Ana Castillo as Mia, who is on her own for much of the film, directed by Albert Pinto and written by Indiana Lister, Ernest Riera and Miguel Ruz. It's set in a sort of like Spanish dystopia, but to be honest, it could be set today. It's very transferable in its message, and it made me really, really sad. It's about a woman and her husband. She's pregnant. They're fleeing war-torn Spain for very, very valid reasons. They've already lost their daughter. They're grown, well, like their preteen daughter, and they trying to escape in a shipping crate. They get separated, and she ends up on her own in a shipping crate that went overboard during a storm, and she's just floating around in the middle of the sea in this shipping container, which I know that's a little bit spoilery, but that's, you know, that's what the poster image is, like that's where you know it's going. It was quite a hard watch for me in a lot of places. Like the older I get, the more I struggle with, you know, things like, you know, pregnant women having to battle out the elements alone. And it was one of those films that made me feel just really, really tense, because she's literally just in a sinking container. You don't know how long she's got. And it was really, really harsh to watch. And I wasn't really sure at any point if the film was going to go in like a happy resolution direction, or if it was going to just be an absolute disaster, like turn out to be like a disaster film, like a one person sort of disaster journey. What I really, really liked about it, firstly, the performance from Ana Castillo. Sorry, I can never remember people's names off the top of my head. She's amazing. This is like a powerhouse performance, just incredible. She must have screamed herself hoarse, bless her, the poor woman. But I was really, really impressed, and she really sold the part and the concept to me. I really enjoyed the sort of set in one room kind of thing. I'm a big fan of those. I really enjoy things like Misery, Gerald's Game, The Platform. I think is The Platform French? I think so. It's a great film, also on Netflix. So I really enjoy films that are like set in one room, and they're like problem solving, like how do I get out of this kind of scenarios. The kind of film where you're like sat there trying to think of a way out of the scenario yourself. It's kind of like being in an escape room, I suppose. That's what I think of it like. So yeah, I was really enjoying, you know, watching her go through the motions of trying to problem shoot all of these millions of problems that she had. It was really entertaining, but yeah, it was a bit close to the bone, because obviously we do live in a world where people are very often trying to flee countries. They're trying to get places with their children. You know, if someone tries to flee across the sea on a raft or in a shipping container or something, especially if they've got their children in tow, then the place they must be coming from must be that bad where they're going to take a risk like that. So I think knowing that it's a possible real world scenario even today, that, I don't know, I found it really chilling for that reason. I think good film, very sobering, and I did need to immediately watch an episode of The In-Betweeners after it, just to square myself up so that I didn't have really horrible stressful nightmares. But yeah, I don't know if that's even classed as a horror film. I'm sure there are people that would put it in a thriller category, and honestly I really don't know what the difference between a thriller and a horror anymore is. All I know is that very often things are labelled horror unless they get some sort of critical acclaim or commercial success, and then all of a sudden they're rebranded as a thriller. So I really don't know, but in my opinion, it's one of the most horrific scenarios that I would never have imagined something this level of just awful. So it's a horror story to me anyway. That's my weekly wrap up. Sorry if I'm a bit rambling. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning while I'm recording this. I've had a busy week and trying to fit in my recording right now. So yeah, so to summarize, and the links for all of these things will be in the description. We've got Dead Inside by Chandler Morrison, got Run, Walk, Crawl, and 30 Days of Night, Fear of the Dark by Tim Lebbon, and The Weird Tales Boys from PS Publishing. American Horror Stories I viewed on Disney Plus, and then, like I just mentioned, Nowhere is on UK Netflix. If there's anything in particular that you'd like me to watch for my next video that's available to me on Amazon Prime, Disney Plus or Netflix, let me know, because I would love some suggestions. It's been quite a while since I've been browsing things to watch, so I really don't know where to start or what's even available and what's great. I would prefer something that's good. But, you know, if you want to send absolute crap my way in the form of suggestions, that's also a fun time for me sometimes. So, yeah, thanks for being here for this wrap up. Hopefully I'll have a few more books to talk about next week. I do usually try to read more than one book in a week, but been busy. so but at least I had TV to talk about. So I still don't really know what to do for sign off. So bleed. Oh, also subscribe. Bleed.